Shalom. First and foremost, before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Double honors go out to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Shalom Mabarakim to you brothers and sisters out there. Right, this is the brother Malachi from the Great Millstone National Branch. And Lord willing that this lesson is edifying to the hopeful elect. All right. It's a topic that I was meditating on this morning, and the Wadi Abba Shemel Shai that I remembered it, because we were, I was talking to a few brothers on the phone, and we were talking about, basically dudes that, have fell away, over the past few years, one being, relatively recent. All right. Because dealing with Israelite foreigners, because, I'm gonna speak Yahweh out through the Spirit with this. Okay, because you'll notice that there aren't really a lot of Israelite foreigners in the truth. Most brothers in the camps, look so-called black. Do you have Latinos and Native Americans? Absolutely. Especially Latinos, absolutely. But the majority, whether they're Southern, Northern Kingdom, doesn't matter. I'm saying outwardly, which we know, all the tribes ultimately at one point in time were more so-called black looking. We know we've been scattered and all that. All right, but because I know plenty of brothers from the Northern Kingdom, from Native American Latino tribes that, can pass as so-called black. All right, because that's the ancient look. And it's a beautiful thing. All right, but you don't have a lot of Israelite foreigners, but like in the truth, I'm saying, not because in the world you do. There's a lot of Israelite foreigners that are bugged out. Okay, and what we all need to understand, because, because some of the comments that came with this recent guy from Ohio that had fell away, which, I personally met him one time. And I'm not, going to speak on him because I don't really know him, and I'm not, I'm nobody, first of all, so my input really doesn't matter in that regard. Okay, but you can't sit here and say, so what do y'all think? Because he fell out, is he still an Israelite? Bro, he understood the truth at one point in time, and he believed. Now I don't, like I said, I'm not in the man's mind. I don't know him. All right, but the story goes that he did believe, but then he basically became disenchanted and still stuck around and then fell away. Okay. That's the understanding that I have on the matter. And essentially the spirit was stripped from him. When I've read the scriptures and what I've been taught is that only Israelites can truly believe and come into this knowledge. Okay, just because you fall out and look like another nation doesn't mean, oh, well, he's a heathen. Because like Apostle Aryamla was saying, because that same type of rhetoric, if that word is being used correctly, can be applied to so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. If you come into truth as a so-called black man, you claim Judah, and you fall out, does that mean you're a terror? No. All right, because we know that a lot of our people, the Israelites, most of our people here in America, 2/3 of our people here in America, are going to be destroyed, along with the rebels across the globe. Okay? Most of our people are not built, for the ministry. And I literally mean not built because the Lord did not ordain them to come into this truth, or the Lord did not ordain them to remain in this truth. Let me grab a quick one here. I think it goes, no doubt. No doubt would have remained with us. Here we go. 1 John chapter 2, verse 19, on the left side, the KJV. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would no doubt have continued with us. But they went out that they might be manifest that they were not all of us. I'll get an NLT as well. These people left our churches, meaning they were at one point here, but they're no longer here, which is the parable of the sower. All right, there's multiple parts to the parable of the sower, because we're going to have more brothers fall out. You got dudes falling out now over the simple things. What about when and it's going to hurt, man. It's going to really hurt. Okay? Imagine you get to the chariot. Yaharat Desire of the elect. You first and foremost. If you're sincere, and myself and in our households. But imagine you get to a chariot and you find out that a brother that you were closest to didn't make it because he took the MOTB, C-hip. Or even worse, you see him take it. But it's the parable of the sower at the end of the day. Not being able to endure, the persecution, the temptation. All right, because if you want to be honest and blunt, this truth, it's wonderful, it's amazing, it's beautiful. But ultimately, it sucks. And I'm not saying that, and, let me explain. All right? Because you got it, like the scripture say, examine first, then rebuke. What I mean by that is, it's beautiful. All right? The prophecies, the things that are promised to us, it's all wonderful, it's all amazing. We're looking for it. That's why we're hastening the day. But that's that sweet. Then that bitter kicks in. You find out that you came into this truth to suffer, all right, to catch more hell. And not only catch more hell, but to understand why you're catching hell, which really makes it worse. Because when you were in the world, you were catching hell, but you just thought it was normal. So, okay. Now you catch hell and you realize we're supposed to be gods. We're supposed to be kings and priests. We're supposed to be ruling the earth. We're supposed to be the chosen people. And yet we're working for the base man, scraping up money, to pay bills to this base man that is shooting us every day, with the body cam on, mind you. All this wicked shit that's going on. All right, it's very bitter. But here's the important thing to understand, because I actually, first and foremost learned it from Yahweh Shemel Shai through the apostles and elders. But there's this dude named Jocko Willink. All right, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL. And he said, whenever something sucks, I love it. Because that's, and I know what he's saying when he says that. Even though I'm not in the military, what he's trying to say is when you go through something that's horrible, that causes pain, it's suffering, it causes stress and all that, it creates growth. Okay, that's where you grow, that's where you learn, that's where everything comes together. And that's what this truth is all about. It's about suffering, pain. It sucks. Okay? And a lot of dudes, bro, you find out that they're not built for that. Because once they get past that sweet, which is really like the first couple years, you're all excited and happy and boom, 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 everything's motivation. But then once you lose that motivation, and it's more so about discipline and about you understanding that this is your duty and this is what you're passionate about this, even when your flesh doesn't want to do it, a lot of people start to fold. They start to fall away because they lost that motivation. It's not about motivation, man. There's been times where I don't want to do lessons. There's been times when I didn't want to go to camp. But guess what? I went. And I wasn't just there flowing with emotion, like, yeah, whatever, I'm here. No, this is my duty. I've been called. I've been drafted into this war, and I'm going to fight to my last breath, But what I wanted to go into, ultimately with this lesson is you see certain Israelite foreigners and you're like, oh, well, that dude got to be a man of the Lord. He got to be part of the elect. Because look, there's only a handful of them. No, because you're forgetting one key factor. Yahweh Shemel Shai does not give a fuck about what you look like. Okay? Let's not forget, because we pulled this scripture dealing with the fact that it's not based upon appearance and how you look. Well, the same thing applies with this. The Lord don't look at it like, oh, well, he's just one of 5 white dudes teaching my ministry. No, he's another regular Israelite that I have made look a certain way for my sake, for my purpose, or for judgment, whatever the case may be. This man looks at what he looks, but the Lord doesn't look on the outward man. We are all still held by the same standard. Just because you're an Israelite foreigner doesn't mean you're guaranteed to get on the chariot. It doesn't mean that you don't need to do the work. It doesn't mean any of that. Okay? And it damn sure doesn't mean that you're better than anybody else. Okay? Because you'll hear certain brothers say that, I couldn't handle looking like that. And, Satan will try to come in your head. Oh, yeah, see, so that means... No, bro. That don't mean you're on any type of level, because we all go through different things. Every brother has a tailor-made hell, And I didn't come up with that myself. I learned that, from the men of Yahweh Shema Shai, a tailor-made hell. That's exactly what it is. Because I see things that brothers go through that I'm like, how the hell? I'm like, man, that shit would be fucked. And I'm sure vice versa. We've all gone through things that, others can't go through. And you've seen things that you're like, how did, damn, I don't know if I can handle that. And that's especially why you don't need to compare yourself, and you need to focus on your lot. Like Apostle Ariamla made a video, a while back. I wish it was easier to find videos on YouTube when it comes to brothers. If you want to find folly, boom, you just type in a couple words, it popped up. You try to find a brother's video, you type in the channel, the title, everything, it don't pop up. It's like, bro, what the hell? But the channel, or not the channel, Salakia. The title was called Come Into Your Own. All right, you need to be yourself. Okay, but the Spirit was on me to make this video to, basically say for brothers that, look normal, and I'm going to say normal because that's what it is. Don't look at Israelite foreigners like, yeah, this is a man of the elect. You don't know that. We all still have to follow Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. We all are held to a standard, man. Just because you see, oh, well, he looks white, so he got it. No, that ain't got nothing to do with it, man. At all. And we have examples of that. It don't matter that you're an Israelite foreigner. You can still fall out. The Spirit can still be stripped from you, man. But at the same time, I will say this for the Israelite foreigners, and I'm speaking off of experience. Don't beat yourself up about how you look. It took me a very long time to get over how I looked. And I'm going to be honest, I've even wanted to die over how I looked. Because, yes, it can be very depressing. And the Wadi Yahweh Shema Shai, I am very thankful to say that I am past that point. Okay? I don't give a fuck anymore. Because at the end of the day, every single brother in this ministry is looking for that new body. I don't give a fuck how jacked, how many women like you, how dark your skin is, curly your hair is. We're all looking for that new body, that body without sin. Because that's the main thing. No matter what you look like, sin dwells within you. You see? So let me grab this though. Because the Lord don't look at it like, oh yeah, he's a foreigner. No, he's an Israelite from whatever tribe, and he's bullshitting. The Lord is not a respecter of persons, man. So neither should we be. All right, we ought not to be respecter of persons either. I don't give a fuck what you look like, man. If you're not doing your videos, then you're slothful. Okay? If you're not fasting, you're not praying, you're not going to camp, then you're fucking lukewarm. Okay? I don't give a damn what you look like, man. We're not gay, first of all. So I don't care what you look like. Okay? I like women, bro. I don't give a fuck what you look like. Are you doing the work of the Lord or not? Do you have the Holy Spirit on you or not? That's what I'm looking for. All right, 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. But Yahweh said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, nor on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For Yahweh seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looketh on the heart, which goes in a lob. Or not Laab, Salakia. Lob, I believe. There isn't two A's in there. Let me get it. Because the English ain't good enough for us, all right? So we can go into the word. Well, this says labab, which I'm actually not used to seeing. But we'll read what it says, because I've heard, lab or lob. All right, but we'll read it. It says labab here, at least in this verse. It's probably different in other verses, but right here it says labab, which we also know the blue letter goes off. All right, but just reading it for what it says, because I'm pretty sure it's lab, okay? Because even when I've thrown up prayers, which deals with my mind, which ultimately we know is your spirit, all right, that's the important thing here. Lab, yeah, means my mind, okay? But I'll read what it says. Labab, H3824, labab, all right, not li-bob. There's no e's in Hebrew. La-bob, okay? It says inner man, mind, will, heart, soul. So your spirit, basically, your rachaya, which means my spirit, okay? The Lord looks on that because that's ultimately what is an Israelite. Your flesh doesn't matter. Your flesh doesn't determine you being an Israelite or not, man. It's the spirit, which the Romans 8:16, which the spirit of an Israelite is only going to go into the body of somebody that is an Israelite according to their patrilineal, their father's lineage, okay? Because this is not about skin complexion. This is not about both my parents are black. No, this is about your father's lineage, which, if you want to be technical, would go back thousands upon thousands of years back to the patriarch Jacob. Nobody has those records, so nobody can technically prove that they're an Israelite. You can't look at a so-called white man or an Asian man or, East Indian or so-called African or whatever and say, yeah, you're a heathen. Well, wait a minute. Do you have the records? How do you know your great-grandfather ain't so-called white and he was a slave master that great so-called black woman? And how do you know that so-called white man didn't go back to the Dark Ages in Europe, in Britain or something, and his great-great-grandfather is so-called black on his father's side? You don't know these things. A lot of Jake want to be carnal and look at, let me see his parents. Let me look at him. And that's not, did your lineage start 3 days ago? It's not how that works, bro. This is a faith-based thing. So yes, we are faith-based Israelites. Okay? So get out of that carnal-minded bullshit. Like it says, I believe in Romans 8, a carnal mind is enmity with the Most High, man. And what ultimately is a carnal mind? Somebody that deals with the flesh. That's what carnal goes into. But who's the person that deals with that? Esau. He's the one that pushed race is determined by your skin complexion. That's never how it used to be. Okay? Because even Esau knows that, the upper echelon of Esau, because they have something called the one-drop rule, where if you were found to have even one so-called black ancestor, you were ousted by Esau Edom back in the day. Okay? The elites, best believe the elites know about Israelite foreigners, man. Because you even had Italians, Southern Italians, they came over here and they were lynched. Or I believe it was recorded as one of the, worst lynchings, because there was I think 11 or something. Point being, they came over here, were blamed for being connected to the mob, being connected to crime. Look at that, because you come from Southern Italy or Sicily. Oh yeah, he's got to be tied in with the mafia. And he has nothing to do with that at all. He just came over here to work some jobs and to raise his family because he thought he saw some hope because he was poor back over there. But he came over here, oh yeah, he got to be a mob boss or related to one. Isn't that the same thing they do with Jake, so-called black people? This man's wearing a hood over his head because it's raining. Yeah, he about to steal my purse. Is that not the same fucking thing? Like, come on, bro. But the point I wanted to ultimately put out there and say that just because you're an Israelite foreigner doesn't mean you're part of the elect. And brothers, stop looking at it like that. Okay? Stop looking at it like that, man. Because ultimately, none of us even have the records. But you being so-called black right now doesn't mean anything. Because what happened to the tares? They're still here somewhere. So how do you know you're not a tare? Because you're in this ministry, because you believe. Okay? So it's not about looks. It doesn't make anybody better than nobody. We're all subject to the same labor in the according to our lot, and our talent, of course. Right? But we're all subject to serve Yahweh by Shemel Shai, Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. We all have to work out our own salvation. Philippians 2 and 10, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 and 12. Salaki for that. But we all have to make diligence, to make our calling and election sure, like it says in Peter's. We have to endure. We have to fight no matter what. No matter what you look like, no matter how tall you are, no matter what your build is, no matter what your scenario situation is, no matter where you're from. We have to serve Yahweh by Shemel Shai with fear and trembling and continue to do the work. And have faith. Hebrews 11 and 6. If you don't have faith, you can't please the Lord. All right, so Lord willing that this lesson was edifying, exhorting to the hopeful elect. Before I close, I'm going to give all praise to Yahweh by Shemel Shai, by Shem Rachah HaKodash. Double honors to the Apostle Ezra Gray Millstone. And Lord willing, I can have a title for this because I'm not sure as of yet what I'm going to title it, but I pray it was edifying, man. Shalom.